Hi, today I'm talking about the book that started it all and how I used to absolutely hate reading, but now I am a avid bookworm and author. If you're new here to my channel, I am JD. I am a extremely busy mom of two, and this channel is all about my journey through authorship and life and kind of how I managed to keep it all together, or lack thereof. Let's get started. So, the history behind this. I used to hate reading. I absolutely despised it. I was such a slow reader. I have this vivid memory from elementary school. I had this really awesome book from a book fair. It was a Scholastic book. I don't even remember the title of it. I just remember it had a very pretty black and silver cover with a white unicorn on it, and it was all about unicorns and kind of traveling back and forth between these two worlds. It was like our world, and this girl would go back to this unicorn world where she was like the queen or princess or something. And you know, every fifth grader girl's dream of a book to read, and I just couldn't get into it. And part of that was I was such a slow reader. I would remember reading a page and getting to the bottom and not remembering what I just read, and it drove me nuts. I tried so hard to read and get into books. I mean, I remember my mom being an avid reader. There were books all over the house. I remember us having tons of books everywhere. We'd go to the libraries. I'd always have money for the book fairs. It was awesome, but at the same time, I just did not like reading. And fast forward a couple of years into middle school. Middle school. Blech. It was middle school. And being a military brat, we were overseas and there was no base, so I was stuck in this private school. I was a day student at a boarding school in New Zealand, and my parents were there with me. You know, we had our house, and I would travel to the school every day to take classes and whatnot. And I remember the first year there, my English teacher did this exercise for the whole class. It wasn't just me, it was the whole class. And I don't remember the specifics of it. We were reading the poem To Be or Not to Be from the play Hamlet, and we had the words counted out through each verse, and we had to read them aloud, and it became a game to see how far you could read it aloud in like 2 minutes. And we did it over and over and over again, and I don't know how it happened, but by doing that exercise with my class that year, I started reading faster and I started getting it. That was about the year that Harry Potter came out and really hit it big. I think the first 2 books were out, and so of course the first thing I read was Harry Potter and those first 2 books. And then me being kind of an introvert and not being a very popular kid at school, especially being a foreign kid at a big, rich private school, the library was kind of my friend. And so I started reading anything I could get my hands on once I started reading faster. And so Harry Potter led me to other books like Tamir Pierce and her Tortall series. I read through the library basically. Anything in the fantasy genre really caught my attention. I went back and read those unicorn books, and eventually I started getting into like Robert Jordan, and I was staying up through the night reading the Wheel of Time series in 9th grade, and it was just insane. And I just went through it all. And one of those books that I went through in that time period was the book that started it all for me. And that was Demon in My View. Hopefully the glare I've lost the dust jacket for it, but it was Demon in My View by Amelia Atwater Rhodes. And this wasn't even the first book in the series. It was just the first book I read by this author. And it started it all. A brief summary of the story is it's about this kind of outcast girl in high school who writes books in her spare time and publishes them. But little does she know that the books she's writing are actual real events about real vampires, and the vampires have taken notice and they're coming after her. And Aubrey is the vampire that's sent after her, and that's who's on the cover. And of course, Jessica and Aubrey fall in love and yada yada, teen angst and all that stuff. But what really sparked me, besides the fact that, it was this about a teenage author in the book, was when I went to read about the author who actually wrote this, Amelia Atwater Rhodes. I found out she was only a year older than I was. And that just kind of shook my world. I was like, here I am, a 14-year-old high schooler, or middle schooler. I don't know. I'm very confused between the European form. I think it was freshman year of high school that I was actually reading this. And so she was a sophomore in high school, and she had already published at least 2 or 3 books. And I mean, they're not huge books, but they are amazing stories. And she was only a year older than I was. And that's when it kind of clicked for me as like, I could do this. If she could do it, I can do it. And so about that time was when I first started writing my first stories. And yeah, and that was kind of what did it. My first stories were absolutely, well, I can't say they were absolutely terrible, but they were pretty terrible. I hand wrote them in notebooks. The first one was very Tamora Pierce's, with this world where there's this island and the coastland, and this girl could talk to animals and dragons. But it was my first story, and I really enjoyed them. The second story I worked on was called The Gifted, and I think I only got about 3 or 4 chapters into it. I am notoriously a project starter. I have tons of projects started and ideas, and The Gifted was the first one that I typed up, and I actually got a few chapters into, and it was the first story I got critiqued, because in that private school I went to in New Zealand had a author residence program, and so a author would work at the school and would critique any stories submitted to him. And I still have those chapters critiqued, printed out with his notes on them. I don't remember his name or what he wrote. I need to go and see if I can find it. That was it. And that feedback from him, he said it was really promising. I'm sure it's something he said to all the students. Thinking back about it, I probably am very cringe worthy. If I clean my office and find it, I will do a whole video on that section if you guys like. But I'd probably cry and cringe if I tried to read those chapters today. But that start is what pushed me to keep trying and keep writing. So that was from 1999, early 2000s was when that all started. And now it's 2020. And I've got nearly 10 full-length novels that I've written, all in various stages of edits and areas of critique and whatnot. And this year I'm really kind of pushing myself to get some of them out into the world. Legacy is up for pre-order. I will have all the vendor links down below. Comment down below and let me know what started the writing bug for you. I would love to know your story and how writing started for you, and what spurred you to first put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard. I will see you guys next time. Be sure to click on the next video. Peace, love, and happy writing, y'all.